Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. IRS begins 2022 tax season, urges extra caution for taxpayers to file accurate tax returns electronically to speed refunds, avoid delays. But first, an attempt at a joke. I apologize in advance. For everything, there is a season, a time to every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to reap, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to laugh and a time to weep. But the current season, of course, is tax season. A time to count that which has been reaped, a time to hand over that which has been counted to the government so they can piss it away in an amazingly and unprecedentedly irresponsible fashion. A time to calculate and a time to cry, a time to agonize over new tax laws and a time to throw up your hands and just send in whatever the tax software says. A time to rejoice that the process of paying taxes is over, and a time to pray that an IRS auditor's dark shadow never hang over your doormat. IR 2022-18, January 24th, 2022, Washington. The Internal Revenue Service kicked off the 2000 double dues tax season with an urgent reminder to taxpayers to take extra precautions this year to file an accurate tax return electronically to help speed refunds. The start of this year's tax season, which takes place earlier than last year's February 12th opening, so they're kind of bragging a bit here. So they started a little bit earlier. That's good. Signals the IRS is now accepting and processing 2021 tax returns. More than 160 million individual tax returns for the 2021 tax year are expected to be filed, with most before April 18th tax deadline. So the deadline, April 18th. Most taxpayers face an April 18th deadline this year. There's a link to that here due to the Emancipation Day holiday in Washington, D.C. falling on April 15th. Taxpayers in Massachusetts and Maine will have an April 19th deadline due to Patriots Day. Disaster victims have later filing deadlines in some locations. There's a link to that here if you want some more information related to it. IRS Commissioner Chuck Reddick noted that taxpayers need to take special care this year due to several critical tax law changes that took place in 2021 and ongoing challenges related to the pandemic. So obviously there's tax laws changes, and they're backed up on the IRS with regards to paper processing and so on. So you want to make sure that you get things done accurately if you're looking for that refund. If you're trying to get that refund as soon as possible, you'd like to file electronically, you'd like to get the automatic direct deposit type of information, and you'd like to avoid any types of mistakes. Obviously, the tax law is one of those things that it's easier when the tax law stays consistent and people's basically income levels stay somewhat relatively consistent, or at least easy to plan for. But that clearly isn't the case for the last couple of years. We got a lot of changes in terms of the tax law, much of them coming into the low to middle income area as well, which makes those tax returns, which are a lot of them, a lot more complicated than they might otherwise be. In other words, if your income was below a certain threshold at one time, you would just say, I don't need to file a tax return because I don't owe any taxes because my income is below the threshold to owe any taxes. But now we've got all these law changes like the advanced CTC credits, the earned income tax credits, and the stimulus payments and so on, which all have this prepayment component and law changes related to them, which can make things confusing. We saw it last year with the recovery rebate credits, and this year we've got the recovery rebate credits and we have the advance payments of the CTC credits, child tax credits, and so there's a lot of room for people to make errors. So you probably want to take advantage of software if you have the ability to do so. Take advantage of the free file software that can eliminate a lot of the errors and make the return processing and hopefully the getting of the refund a lot faster. So quote, IRS employees who worked hard to deliver a successful 2022 tax season while facing enormous challenges related to the pandemic, end quote, Reddick said. Quote, there are important steps people can take to ensure they avoid processing delays and get their tax refunds as quickly as possible. We urge people to carefully review their tax for accuracy before filing, and they should file electronically with direct deposit if at all possible. Filing a paper tax return this year means an extended refund delay, end quote. So they're backed up. We've heard it many times that they're backed up on the paper returns. If you get a processing error or something like that, that could mean that they need a physical person to take a look at the return instead of just processing it. And that, of course, could take more time, especially with the restrictions and the COVID restrictions and all that kind of stuff. So if you want the refund, you want it to go as smoothly as possible. If you owe money, I don't know, maybe you send in a paper return, write a check, as long as they're not hitting you with penalties and interest. Maybe that would, you could try that, and they might not cash your check or process your return forever, not charge you any penalties and interest. But to my opinion, I would still rather have them process it soon, so that I know that they got the thing processed and everything is on the level in that case. But if you want the refund, then clearly you're looking to try to be in compliance here and do everything correctly to get the refund faster. So for most taxpayers who file a tax return with no issues, the IRS anticipates they will receive their refund within 21 days of when they file electronically if they choose direct deposit, similar to previous year. Last year's average tax refund was more than $2,800. So they like to always give this average refund, but I'm not sure how telling that is for most people, because there's a wide range of taxes, right? So I mean, in terms of income level and in terms of refunds and owing money and so on. So the average, I'm not sure it really tells you all that much, because there could be outliers and whatnot. So in any case, that's the average, 2,800. Quote, there are simpler steps that people can take that will help them navigate this challenging tax season, end quote, Reddick said. Quote, filing electronically and using online resources instead of calling are just some of the steps that can help people avoid delays, end quote. And we've also seen that calling the IRS is not at all likely to access anybody at this time because of the delays and whatnot. So they're trying to get their website, I think, picked up and more accurate in ability, given it the ability to answer more questions. Quote, IRS employees will do everything possible with the available resources to serve taxpayers this year, end quote, Reddick said. Quote, we will work hard to deliver refunds quickly, serve as many people as possible, and work to catch up on past tax returns affected by the pandemic. The IRS thanks you for filing your taxes, a critical part of helping our great nation, end quote. IRS tips for a smooth filing season. Fastest refunds by e-filing, avoid paper returns, filing electronically with direct deposit, and avoiding paper tax returns is more important than ever this year to avoid refund delays. And I love how it used to be that all the businesses and the IRS and government entities that were doing this e-filing, obviously the e-filing reduces costs a lot on the business side, and they used to say, we're doing it just to be green, we're doing it just to save paper, which, I mean, it might save paper, but obviously they're doing it for the dollars. And so at this point with the pandemic, it's kind of nice, at least they're actually, they're actually saying what it is, right? They're not trying to give you a guilt trip to be green or anything like that. They're saying, yeah, if we're short on staff, we need this because we don't have money. And it saves a lot of time and money if you file electronically, and so that's generally the argument. Although it's also kind of green too, which would be good. So if you need tax refund quickly, do not file on paper. Use software, a trusted tax professional, or free file on irs.gov. There's a link to the free file here. Again, if your income's below a certain threshold, you should have access to some kind of software. I note that TurboTax isn't on the list, I don't believe, this year. So I thought they were last year. So that's one of the big tax filing programs for individual tax filers. So I'm thinking TurboTax just told them, no, I'm not going to do that this time. The pandemic's over. We should be going back to normal. But whatever, there's other free file softwares on there as well, and you could check those out. Some kind of software would still be really good to use, given the fact that all these changes in the season, in the software, in the tax law, and in people's income thresholds. Avoid delays, file an accurate return. More than ever this year, the IRS urges people to make sure they're ready to file an accurate tax return. An accurate tax return can avoid processing delays, extend extensive refund delays and later IRS notices, special care for the EIP, Advanced Child Tax Credit recipients. The IRS also encourages cautions to those people who received their economic impact payment or Advanced Child Tax Credit payment for 2021. So this is an area where they are saying that they had problems, of course, with the recovery rebate credit for the first two stimulus payments that happened when they were tied to the 2020 tax return, and so those caused a lot of delays apparently. And this now we've got the third economic impact payment, which will have the recovery rebate credit related to it. Which I would guess that many people, if you asked them, what a stimulus payment is, what an economic impact payment is, how it ties to the tax year, what tax year does it tie to, and how is it related to the recovery rebate credit, most people would have no idea, and which would be kind of why you can see there's be a problem here. But so the child tax credit's the other one where you got this advance payment. At least the advanced child tax credit sounds like the child tax credit. So you got an advance payment of the child tax credit. Like the stimulus payment didn't say it was an advance payment. It doesn't refer to the recovery rebate credit at all. The two words are totally different. So it's kind of confusing. The child tax credit's still confusing, though, because they adjusted the law for it. They made it more refundable. They changed the law on it, and then they gave some of it out in advance. So that's going to cause problems. But we'll see how it plays out here. Taxpayers should ensure the amounts they've received and enter correctly on the tax return. Incorrect entries when reporting these payments, when the payments mean the IRS will need to further review the tax return, creating an extensive delay. To help taxpayers, the IRS is mailing special letters about the stimulus payments and advanced child tax credit payment amounts. So they're going to try to send you a thing, a letter, kind of like a 1099, but giving you information on the money that you received. I'm not saying that it has to be included in income. I'm saying it's something that you have to include as part of, or think about when you're doing your tax returns. So people can also check the amount of their payments on their online account available on irs.gov. So they got the online account. They got a new security system to log in, which is, I think that's causing some people some problems. But the online account in general is good. They've been improving that. Earned income tax credit or additional child tax credit refunds. By law, the IRS cannot issue a refund involving the earned income tax credit or additional child tax credit before mid-February, though eligible people may file their returns beginning on January 24th. So when you think about all this money that's been going out, there's fraud that's clearly happening. And so the ones that are going to be big for fraud are going to be these big credits, which are going to be the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit. So they need a little bit more time. This is my interpretation, in order to try to safeguard against fraudulent returns. There's a big, there's kind of more incentive these days for people to steal identification numbers and whatnot and file fraudulent returns to try to take advantage of some of these refundable credits in a little bit more time to see the actual returns processed may help the IRS to stop some of that behavior. So the avoid phone delays, online resources, best option for help. IRS.gov is the quickest and easiest option for help. That's for sure, because we've heard that their phone answering systems they got 25% of the calls last year actually got through to someone or something. It's pretty low. I'm not even sure it was that. So the phone, you're probably not getting through on the phone lines these days, apparently. So hopefully you can get some help on the IRS website. So IRS-assisted phone lines continue to receive record numbers of calls, more than the agency can handle with its limited resources. So, and they're trying to improve apparently the phone lines and give a better answering system and possibly give a callback day, which would be nice. If they could say, hey, we're not going to be able to get to your call for a month, we'll call you back, something like that. That would be nice if they could, average that or something like that. Avoid delays. Check irs.gov First, for refund information and answer to tax questions, there's links to those here. Establish an online account on irs.gov can also help taxpayers get information quickly. The online account feature has recently been expanded to allow more people to gain access. Don't normally file a return? Consider filing for CTC, that's the child tax credit, and other available credits, valuable credits. So it used to be if your income is below a certain level, which would be kind of like the standard deduction, right? If you get a standard deduction higher than your income, there was no need to file in many cases due to the fact that you're not going to get any money unless you had withholdings that were, right? You still could have it, but you might say, I'm just not going to file in that case. What's the point? I don't owe any money. And the IRS would be okay with that. If you ask the question these days, should you file a tax return or do you have to file a tax return if your income is below a certain level? The answer will often be no, because you don't owe any money. But that doesn't mean you might not get a benefit, and it's more and more likely that you're still going to get some kind of, quote, refund, end quote, even if you don't owe any taxes, which isn't really a refund because they're using the tax code as basically a benefit program or a welfare program. I don't know. You're going to get a refund even though you don't pay any taxes, and that could happen for these refundable credits like the child tax credit, like the earned income tax credit, like the recovery rebate credit. And then you might also have withholdings that if you worked at all, they might have taken withholdings. So it's more and more likely that you would want to file in almost any circumstance these days, even if you didn't make any money. And you can get tax software to file for free, generally on the free file. So it'd be worthwhile to look at it and check it out and see what is what. So for people who don't normally file a tax return and who didn't file a 2020 return or use the non-filers tools, they can still qualify for important credits they're eligible for, including the recovery rebate credit, stimulus payment, advanced child tax credit, or earned income tax credit. There's links to those items here. The IRS encourages people in this group to file a 2021 tax return so they can receive all of the credits for which they're eligible. Online options for free help, answer to common questions, the irs.gov. To get answers to tax questions, check a refund status or pay taxes. There's no wait time or appointment needed. Online tools and resources are available 24 hours a day. Other free options for help. IRS Free File is available to any person or family who earned $73,000 or less in 2021. Qualified taxpayers can also find Free File on free one-on-one tax preparation help around the nation through the Volunteer Income Assistance, the VITA, and tax counseling for the elderly, the TCE programs. And hopefully these programs, because a lot of people are still not into this, this everything being online and checking the website and no actual help, not even phone help these days, so they would like to talk to someone. And I would think that these services are quite good, I think, to have. And last year, because of COVID, those services were even more difficult to find. So hopefully this year, if for people that want to get physical help, I would expect them to have increased levels of demand for these things, possibly due to last year decreased levels of demand because of the COVID thing. So hopefully they're clear to get back to doing that. So 2020 tax return still being processed. Tips to help with filing 2021 tax return. For people whose tax returns from 2020 have not yet been processed, they can still file their 2021 tax returns. For those filing electronically in this group, here's a critical point. Taxpayers need their adjusted gross income, or AGI, from their most recent tax return when they file electronically. For those waiting on their 2020 tax return to be processed, make sure to enter $0 or $0 for last year's AGI on the 2021 tax return. So this is like the sneaky, like you have to know kind of thing. It's kind of like when you're playing the video game and you have to, like, to advance to the other level, you got to hit like up, left, right, A, B. That's what you got to do. So you got to know this. It's critical information. Let's go through this again. For people whose tax returns from 2020 have not yet been processed. So we're trying to file 2021. Possibly you filed 2020, but it hasn't been processed yet. So that means that you're trying to file 2021, but normally you need to enter your AGI for 2020. To do that, but the IRS won't know what your AGI is for 2020 to electronically file 2021 because 2020 hasn't been processed and it's not in their system yet. So what are you supposed to do? So they can still file. You can still file for those filing electronically in this group. Here's a critical point. So here's the secret code. Taxpayers need their adjusted gross income, or AGI, from their most recent tax return when they file electronically. For those waiting on their 2020 tax return to be processed, so the AGI is not going to work because the IRS doesn't know what the AGI is yet because it hasn't processed, meaning it hasn't gone through their system yet. Make sure to enter $0 or $0 for last year's AGI on the 2021 tax return. There it is. There's the code. Visit the validating your electronically filed tax return for more details. April 18th tax deadline. The filing deadline is April 18th for most taxpayers. Automatic 6-month extension of time to file are available for anyone filing Form 4868 application for automatic extension of time to file U.S. individual income tax returns. There's links to some of this information here. There'll be a link to this in the description.